Yeah, there's a lot of systems there, right? Like the tech stack's quite a lot when you think about that. Managing your own tech stack can be a lot of work, and you can spend so much money on the wrong tech stack as well. So costs add up, and you think, oh, it's only $5 a user a month. It's actually not that much money. But then you realize that it's $5 a user a month for every user, for every system that you have.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people kind of run into at a certain stage. Maybe when they start out, they have one or two systems, and then they find, well, we need something to do something else, so they put another system in, and they just keep sticking band-aids on to try and try and solve those problems, and then they end up in a bit of a mess.
Absolutely. What are some of the must-have tools or software that make up a really strong tech stack for SIL providers?
Yeah, so really from the ground up, you really want to make sure that you've got...
Every SIL provider knows the challenges: compliance, rosters, claims. But what if you could work smarter, grow faster, and make a bigger impact? Welcome to SILosophy, where we have real conversations about what it takes to succeed in supported independent living. This podcast is powered by Tania Gomez Consulting and Resolve. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to SILosophy. Today I'm joined by Anita Gover from TechAbility. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So today, before we start, I wanted to have you talk to everybody a little bit about what TechAbility does and also your background in the disability space.
Sure. So TechAbility, we provide tech consulting and advisory services for mostly the NDIS sector, some aged care, community services. The type of services that we provide is helping people develop their IT strategy, also helping people find the right solutions and systems that they need for their business. We do cybersecurity services, pretty much anything tech related we can help you out with. So we provide those advisory services and connect you with the right systems, and we can also help to implement those systems. So I have a team of project managers. We do implementations, training, change management, that kind of stuff, and we provide ongoing, I guess you would call it CIO, virtual CIO type services for organisations.
Yeah, beautiful.
And in terms of how we ended up in the disability sector, so I've got the business is my business, and I started about 6 years ago. My background is in corporate IT, having worked my way up through corporate world over the years, and I decided I was done with that and wanted to start my own business. And I decided to work in the disability sector. I have a child with disability myself. He's 13 now, nearly an adult. And I could see through the providers that I dealt with, through my son, that there was a need for better support for tech services and tech within the sector. I could just see some gaps there, and I thought, well, maybe this is something that I can do, and hence TechAbility was born.
Yeah, amazing. It's such a great concept and something that's so needed, because managing your own tech stack can be a lot of work, and you can spend so much money on the wrong tech stack as well. So it's great to have someone like you that can guide people through how to set up these systems, which will save them a lot of time and money and effort in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, often we get brought in when people have already implemented things and things aren't working.
Yeah.
So we get brought in to help them fix things up.
Yes.
But it's great when we come in early and
Sorry.
Shall I take it back to the beginning of that, or?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great when we come in early, so that we can help people get set up straight, properly right from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that always makes things easier. I really wanted to start by asking you today around the essential tech stack for SIL providers. What are some of the must-have tools or software that make up a really strong tech stack for SIL providers?
Yeah, so really from the ground up, you really want to make sure that you've got the best security. So that needs to be a grounding for everything. Having that in mind and having policies already established for your security and data privacy is really important for all NDIS providers. So with that in mind, then you can build on the rest of your tech stack, and you would need things like your Microsoft or Google, whatever your preference is, productivity suite. That will, of course, any business will use those sort of tools. Then, of course, you need a client management system, or a CRM, some people like to refer to it as, something that manages all of your client information and their support plans and their funding, etc. So you need to have that kind of information. Finance system, of course, like all businesses, you need to be able to manage your finances and report on that. Some organisations, I think, can potentially use HR systems. It depends. What we find is that a lot of the client management systems, specifically for the sector, will have aspects of a HR system. So depending on your size and complexity, you may not need a separate HR system, but that can be something that people look at. Quality systems can be useful as well, to manage your policies, manage your processes, manage your compliance and audit process, as you would know. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the core stack that most people need. And I guess what we find is when we come in is people may have not all of those systems and maybe they need them. Some maybe have too many of those systems. And a lot of organisations actually don't have a lot of those systems, but they're not talking to each other, which is a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of systems there, right? Like the tech stack's quite a lot when you think about that. And if you're, I think best practice is to have one source of truth. But if you have systems where you've got HR files in one place and rostering in another place and timesheets in another place, just the complexity of getting a report and data across all of those is very hard work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people kind of run into at a certain stage. Maybe when they start out, they have one or two systems and then they find, well, we need something to do something else, so they put another system in and they just keep sticking band-aids on to try and try and solve those problems, and then they end up in a bit of a mess because nothing's talking to each other. They have too many systems. People don't understand how to use all of these different systems, and it gets a bit messy, and that's probably where we come in and help with IT strategies.
Yeah. And costly, right? Like the costs add up, and you think, it's only $5 a user a month. It's actually not that much money. But then you realise that it's $5 a user a month for every user, for every system that you have. And I know recently I had a look at my tech stack and it's $200,000. Like it's actually more than you would think when you have a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like when we sort of look at, when we do these strategy jobs for people, we look at that as well, and we look at the different costs that they're paying for all these different systems. And quite often, at the end of it, what we end up with is a much more streamlined systems, of course, but a lower cost because you've cut out a bunch of systems that you didn't need.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned their integrations, but I'm also really interested in automations. What types of automations are available for SIL providers, and how can these automations impact daily operations?
Yeah, so, I mean, there are a lot of automations built into most of the systems out there. So a lot of client management systems will have some good automations built into them, same with HR systems and other types of systems. They'll have a lot of good automations ready built. But what we I guess the common things that we sort of see that people try to automate is things like their client intake and onboarding. That's obviously, something that is timely, it's an administrative burden. Also things like their service agreements and support plans, they try to automate that process. Scheduling, of course, so scheduling and rostering is a big one that people use these tools systems to actually help automate the scheduling and rostering process, which is a very heavy admin burden. And also that helps to improve the operational efficiency in terms of rostering the right people, making sure that you're utilising your staff capacities properly. You're not having to overpay people, do overtime payments because you're, not rostering properly.
Yeah.
Other things that often get automated within systems would be things like comms. So, simple as sending SMS reminders out for shifts and things like that to staff. That's an easy automation that a lot of people will use. Of course, in the finance side of things, billing and claiming, some systems have, interfaces through to Proda, none to Pace yet, but through to Proda, where you can sort of cut out a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of claims, and the finance systems have lots of automations as well to sort of feed information from your client management system through to your finance system and things like that.
Yeah, wonderful. Previously, you talked a little bit about the importance of privacy and data security. What should a SIL provider keep in mind when they're setting up their systems or when they're reviewing their systems when it comes to privacy and security? I've noticed that there's increasing penalties around data breaches and data hacks, and most providers feel like this isn't going to happen to them, that the information they hold isn't that valuable. But there are providers who have been hacked, and there are other ways as well that data can be lost or not backed up and things like that. Where can they start with thinking about cybersecurity and data protection?
I just felt that then. Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, what we need to sort of, or organisations need to remember, is they need to start from the beginning with cybersecurity in terms of understanding the regulations. So there are obviously in the quality and safeguards, there are requirements around data privacy. So you need to obviously understand what that is, which includes things like data encryption, access control, so making sure that people can only access what they need to access in terms of client data. Data sovereignty is a big one that auditors always harp on around having the data stored in Australia. And then I guess in terms of an organisation in thinking about how they can start to make sure that their security is adequate, is really doing an assessment right from the start, not just on the systems that you use, but also on your own organisation. The biggest risk with cybersecurity is people, people leaking that data or doing the wrong thing with information. Quite often it's not intentional, but it happens, and that's usually the biggest risk that we find, and where things go wrong is that people have been involved. So really making sure that you've assessed your overall security position, that you've had someone professional do vulnerability scanning to make sure that there aren't holes in your systems, and then also the policies around that. So developing cybersecurity policies as part of your policy pack, you'll need to make sure that you have all of those relevant policies in relation to data privacy and security. And then training is a big one for your people, making sure that they actually understand the risks and that they understand how to manage things. If something goes wrong, how do I manage a cybersecurity incident? They are reportable. So even in the quality and safeguards, you have to report a cybersecurity incident to the Commission. So, you need to make sure that you actually report that. I'm not sure how many people do, but that's part of it. So, I mean, we always think that a bare minimum what an organisation should adhere to, and this is any business, quite frankly, is what's called the Essential 8, which is the framework that the government has out there for all businesses. Essential 8 maturity level 1, which is the very lowest maturity level, that outlines the 8 areas that you need to ensure that your systems, people, processes are all secured. And in terms of the applications and the systems they use, that will come under that. So when you do an Essential 8 assessment and review that, if you've reached maturity level 1, that incorporates all the applications that you use. So it looks at all those things like access control, where the data's stored, how the data's handled and encrypted, etc.
Wow, there's a lot there.
And there's a lot with cybersecurity. It's very technical, but at the heart of it, it's about, as I said, about the people and making sure that you have policies and people understand the security policies and that they understand how to manage things. And then it's for, you know, your IT people or whoever to actually make sure that those things are secured.
And why is it important for an NDIS provider to make sure they have these things in place?
Well, I mean, the information that they're holding in terms of client data is very personal information, obviously. So it's, you know, information about their health, their you know, key identifiable information like their NDIS number, their plan dates, their date of birth. If anyone captures that information, is able to hack your systems and can get that information out, they basically can access their NDIS plans. So there's a high risk there, and there's other information, of course, around how they're supported, very personal data and health data that's captured in these systems.
Yeah, great. I'm wondering if you can talk to us about some AI-driven tools or hacks that SIL providers could use to save time and potentially improve their service delivery.
Yeah, so AI is, you know, obviously it's been around for a little while, of course, but I think in the last year or two we're really seeing a lot of people embrace it and want to embrace it. I think one of the challenges that we have come across is that people sort of throw around the terminology of AI, and we want to use AI, we want it to help our business, but they're not quite sure how it can help their business, and they're not quite sure how to apply it to their business. So we work with some AI specialists to sort of help people identify and plan out how they're going to implement AI within their organisation. For me, I think the benefits of AI for NDIS providers at the moment, the things that I've sort of foresee at the moment, is really looking at there's what's called NLP, natural language processing, which can help to actually analyse data that you have in your systems and potentially sort of take that maybe unstructured type of data in systems and actually put that together into reports and actionable tasks, and actually provide you with more information about what's going on with clients. And then there's predictive analysis, so being able to sort of look at, from a client perspective, maybe looking at health issues or incidents that might be happening with particular clients, and being able to then provide analysis and information that may actually help you to support that client better. And then on a staffing side of things, also doing that predictive analysis around when maybe certain staff are taking, you know, the same day off every month or something like that, and or how to fill shifts better, you know. So giving you those tools to be able to, taking all that data and all the information that you have in your systems, and then being able to provide you with ways to actually improve the way you support people or the way that your business operates. Excuse me. Obviously, there's other types of tools. You know, some of those tools can be used also with decision support. So, looking at, you know, how a client maybe, again, as I talked about there before, looking at how there might be patterns of behaviour with clients and making decisions around how you can support them better. And then there's, you know, other interoperability of systems. AI can support interoperability of other systems as well. But yeah, there's lots out there, and there are a lot of tools that you can use, and I think that's where people get a bit confused as well, is that there are so many AI tools out there. It's not just ChatGPT, there's millions. And it's not just Gen AI either. There's other types of AI tools, like I was saying, you know, these predictive analysis tools and things like that do slightly different things, and a lot of people don't have the skills or understanding of those tools or the resources internally to actually be able to know what to do with them and how to actually apply that to their business. I think for me, I sort of talk to vendors a lot, and I think that the change is going to come through vendors, and we're starting to see it. You know, I'm seeing a few software vendors out there that are actually bringing these tools into their systems. As you'd probably know, you know, if you've got Microsoft now, Copilot is just built in, right? So, you know, these software tools are actually already bringing that the AI plugins or tools into their own system. So that's what I think needs to happen in the NDIS software world as well, is that these type of tools will start to be brought into the system, and so they'll just be there and there'll be new features and functions. And I know of a few systems that have got some great things on their roadmap that will be bringing in that AI technology into their platforms.
Yeah, amazing. Outside of AI, do you think there's any other emerging tech trends that you think are going to shape the future for SIL providers?
Just one sec. Sorry, I just paused there. So I mean, of course, AI and automation, that's the biggest thing at the moment. And as I talked about a little bit there, predictive analysis, I think in healthcare and of course generally in the care sector, whether it's aged care, disability, that predictive analysis and the decision support type tools are the type of tools that are actually going to be really big in this sector. And there are a few of the sort of global health type platforms out there, not really the ones that we use specifically in NDIS, but these global health systems are actually using that big data from, Salesforce, Google, all these big data platforms. They're using a lot of that data now to actually do a lot of predictive analysis, and they're building that into their own platforms. So I think that'll be an area that will start to pick up. And I think also, the NDIS moved to Pace, being a Salesforce-based platform. Salesforce has a huge big data and AI tools built within it. So I think that they will also start to use these analysis tools in Salesforce, because Pace is now going to be based on Salesforce, so that they will also be getting a lot of data out of the tools that they're using. And I think, that's where these sort of tools will start to be built into the average consumer platforms that NDIS provider uses as well. And I mean, Pace is the other one that people need to kind of keep an eye on and keep on top of. Obviously, it's still being rolled out. They are holding regular webinars, so I mean, I attend them all the time. I've seen it so many times, and I just keep attending them just to see what else is going on and what's new and where it's at. But I think providers need to be on top of that as well, because they will continue to roll out more changes, and they're moving towards that sort of digital transformation within the agency. We already see it in aged care. I'm on a digital transformation sector partners forum for aged care, and they're doing a lot of work in this digital transformation space, and I think we'll start to see that once Pace is fully rolled out. I think we'll start to see that digital transformation come through NDIS as well.
And I've heard that the NDIS Commission, the regulator, is also adopting some AI tools in the data analysis of things like reportable incidents for the first time. And so that's meaning that they are responding quicker to SIL providers not doing unauthorised restrictive practices in time or not reporting things in time. And they're using an AI filter to check things like, what policies you're using, and like capturing more data on the application and the renewal and the audit cycle for them to be able to regulate better. So I think this means you're likely to see faster, maybe more consistent upholding of rules inside the commission, because it's easier for them to see who is and isn't following some of the rules, based on a data analysis. So that's really interesting to think about how that changes your audit cycle and your regulation. So I think it's not just how providers can use things like AI and automation, but also as we see the government get more savvy with the use of this as well. It's likely to shift things for providers a little bit too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, as I said, about the NDIA using Salesforce now. That's probably one of the drivers for them moving to a platform like Salesforce, is that they can utilise those tools.
Yeah.
It will force providers to also start to use better tools that have that analysis as well.
Yeah. So I think we've covered a lot there today. We've talked about the essential tech stack for SIL providers. We've talked about some automation and some AI hacks for time saving. We talked about data security and privacy, and a little bit about maybe what the future holds for tech in SIL. Is there anything else you think that a SIL provider needs to think about when it comes to their technology that we haven't covered today?
Really just planning things out. I think a lot of people sort of miss that step. As I said earlier, they're kind of putting systems in to try and fix things and try and resolve problems, but really taking a little step back and reviewing what you've got and what you need, and really making sure it's fit for purpose, and that you're not duplicating things, you're not complicating things. So taking that step back and reviewing what you have and putting together a good plan or a strategy around your technology stack. Also, as I said, really reviewing your cybersecurity position. I think not enough providers are doing that, to be quite honest. And I think that's going to become a lot more enforced in the next, we've got new Data Privacy Act going to Parliament early next year. So I think that's really going to start to become more enforced. And as you said, we're seeing a lot more of it. We're seeing a lot more fines going out there for people who are doing the wrong thing. But I think, and I think one of the other things that I think providers really need to focus on more is training for their staff. We see that as a huge gap in a lot of organisations, that a lot of staff that work in particularly support staff that work in NDIS providers are not particularly tech savvy. Some are, some aren't, but there's a mixture there. But quite often we don't find particularly tech savvy people. They need a lot of help. They need a lot of change management and training when it comes to systems. So really focusing on that and making sure that that's done well, and that everyone knows what it is these systems are doing for them, and how it's going to improve their day-to-day. What's in it for me, that what's in it for me sort of idea of, making sure that they understand what's in it for them if they kind of learn these systems and use them properly.
Yeah, wonderful. I think that was really great. I think we covered a lot there today. If there is someone who wants to reach out to you for some help with their tech stack, what's the best way for them to get in contact?
Yep, so our website is techability.net.au. You can email us on info@techability.net.au, and reach out to me via LinkedIn. We're on Facebook as well, so reach out. We'd be happy to help.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Tania.
That's a wrap on this episode of SILosophy. If this resonated with you, take a second to subscribe and share it with someone in the SIL space who really needs to hear this. Don't forget to connect with Tania Gomez Consulting on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook for more resources, conversations, and support to help you grow your impact. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep making a difference.